You have a choice when you're pulling the jib up of how much tension is on the head stay and how much is on the jib. And the percentage is simple. You want 100% on the jib. So when you're sailing upwind, the jib halyard has to be tight enough that the forestay is hanging loose. If you're looking, if there's any tension on the forestay, your jib halyard is not tight enough. Very, very important. You will not point if the
And in any
forestay is
condition,
holding.
it's the same rule. Any condition, everyone like
All the time.
It's
all the time. Yeah. Okay, so that, and the solution for that when you're out sailing is if it looks like when you're beating, and running it's kind of irrelevant. It'll do whatever it does. Beating is when you need to make sure that this is looser. And it's difficult to make sure you've got it the right way at the dock. So once you're out sailing, go on the wind, look at the stay, make sure that this is loose, and if it isn't, head downwind and pull your jib up. There's no way you're going to be able to pull the jib up when you're beating. You know, you're going to be wearing the rig. It'll come back at you if you try and do it while you're going upwind. So go down on a run and pull your main up. You may need to get somebody alongside you to give you a hand to pull that halyard on. It needs to be pretty tight. So make sure that all the weight is on the jib luff. And when the jib loads up, there's a problem. Is it tends to go away like this, you know, because the wind's loading the sail. So it's not easy to tell at the dock what situation you're going to have. Like here, it looks like we're all right, but you know, although I'm a blowhard, I can't really totally emulate the wind here. So that's why you have to do the final check on that while you're out sailing. Now there's two other very small points on the jib. Up at the top, the way the jib is set up, there's basically a wire inside the sail, or sometimes it's a spectra rope, and the sail slides on that wire. And there's a lashing up at the top there that relates the amount of tension in the cloth part of the sail versus the tension in the wire. So if we cut that lashing, it'd sort of be like your socks falling down. The cloth would just slide down the stay. Now, how tight do we want it up? Well, we want it to be just tight enough on that lashing that we're not seeing vertical wrinkles. And by the same token, we don't want it so loose that you're seeing a lot of horizontal wrinkles. It should be just basically wrinkle-free. Last thing is the foot of the jib, which should have, it's similar to the outhaul, should have about 2 inches of clearance there. Not super critical unless it's like 4 inches and then it's too much. 2 inches or less and you're going to be fine. And you'll see this one is just shackled on here, no way to adjust it. But if this was out at like 4 inches, what I'd be looking to do is take the piece of string out of my pocket and just maybe get rid of that shackle and just tie it directly into the corner of the end of the jib boom. The jib trim's pretty simple, and I basically don't have my sort of two systems of jib trim here. I kind of only have one for the jib, or 2 systems of main trim. If you look at the straight part of the side deck here, if you come out about halfway, a little less than halfway on the straight part, if you put a tape mark on there, or pencil mark, and just line the end of the boom up with that. That's the easiest way to trim it. And back to the business of, if you're going fast enough, try pulling it in a little bit, pointing a little higher. If you need to go faster to keep up with the other boats, ease it out a little bit. But basically, halfway out, a little less than halfway out, maybe about 3/4 of an inch less than halfway out on the straight section. Just put a little mark there. It's very, very easy to line up the
So
boom
we're
with that.
talking about 9 to 12 inches from the mast. We don't have the same kind of deck. Can I measure it from, like from the mast, like 9
Yeah,
inches,
I'm sure
9 inches from
you,
the
you,
mast or
you
something?
certainly can. I just happen to.
Okay. 'Cause I don't think I have this kind of
The spray deck? Wow, I think they're all pretty close to this, but you could certainly do that. I mean, I'd be putting the mark like about there. And remember, as I say to people, if they're marking the main sheet with a felt pen or something like that, I've run into people that they say, well, I don't want to put a felt pen mark on the main sheet because I don't know where to put it. I said, no, that's not, you're missing the whole point. You pull it into about where you think it should be, you put the mark on, and then you go racing. And you find by using it in and out where that mark should be. And maybe the mark should be a foot further out than you thought or a foot further in. But if you don't start out by just putting a mark about where you think it should be, you're never going to know. And the same thing really applies to this calibration. Once you've found a setting that works, you can still use the same mark position or change it if you want. And then you can come around the leeward mark, bang, your jib goes into the right spot, rather than learning on every beat where the jib should go. So it's really gives you just a reference point for what's working for you. And if it was big waves that particular day, you might find you need to be half an inch outboard of your mark. It's really smooth water and nice steady winds. You could maybe be half an inch inside it. But by having that as a reference point, and how you locate it, obviously isn't super important. But for me, about 3/4 of an inch inside, halfway along the straight part. Okay, and I would use that jib setting virtually all the time. I wouldn't say, well, I use this one for heavy winds and this one for light winds. The jib setting is basically one setting. But remember, my caveat on this is that you adjust it to suit how you're sailing upwind. If you need more speed, ease it out. If you need to point higher, pull it in a bit.